If you're getting leads from Facebook right now that are just broke, they're not showing up, or they just can't afford what you are selling, it's very likely that it's not actually Facebook's fault. And you might actually be training Facebook to send you these bad leads. And so in this video right here, I'm actually going to show you how you can train Facebook and almost force Facebook to send you only the leads that you want, so that you're only talking to people who can actually afford what you're selling. So that means if you're using Facebook to generate leads and you're having a hard time scaling, or you're just seeing that over time, Facebook is sending you worse and worse leads, this is probably the issue and how you can fix it. So first, let's talk about how the algorithm works, because Facebook is really good at sending you exactly what you're asking for. And this is really important to remember, and this is going to come up later. I remember when I was a kid, I used to sneak around and I would watch The Simpsons after school. And my mom would catch me and she'd always go up and change the channel. And she would say, Brice, don't watch this trash, because if you put a bunch of garbage in your head, you're going to get a bunch of garbage out. And it's funny because that's very similar to how the Facebook pixel works. So when you are running ad campaigns and you are choosing inside of your campaign objectives, like what do you want Facebook to optimize for? And let's say you say something like, hey, I want Facebook to send me leads, because this is what most companies are doing that are trying to run lead gen campaigns. Facebook has millions of data points on all the people that are on Facebook. And as you are generating leads that are coming through your pixel, every time that lead hits the pixel and the Facebook pixel says, hey, this is a lead, Facebook is going to say, okay, cool. I accomplished the objective of getting a lead. Now let me go find more people like that. The problem is most people who are generating leads online, particularly if you are selling high ticket offers, coaching, courses, stuff like that, most of those leads are not actually good leads. I mean, if you look at your email list or you look at your call campaigns lately and you see like most people are no-shows or canceled or unqualified, every single time one of those people hits your pixel, you're training Facebook to go get you more people like that. And so the mistake that you're making is you're unintentionally optimizing for all leads and you're not optimizing for the best leads. And by doing that, you're telling Facebook to go get you more of what you don't want. And so this is where we need to learn how to train your pixel and condition it to only send you exactly what you want. And we're going to break this down into two sections. So there's going to be the technical side of this, and then there's going to be the creative side of this. So to get started, let's talk about how we can technically train Facebook to only send us quality leads. So if you're like most people who are selling high ticket offers over the phone right now with Facebook ads, you're probably running a funnel that's very similar to this, right? Which is like you run an ad, people go to a landing page, then they watch some kind of like VSL video, they fill out an application, they book a call, and then they hit some kind of thank you page. This is pretty much the funnel that we always start out with. I don't use lead forms. I know that that's really common with like a lot of different kind of lead gen offers, but particularly for us, because we're selling like high ticket coaching, high ticket courses, we just found that the lead quality is so low. And so this gives us a much better way to filter people and to make sure that we're getting like better leads straight from the start, because we really want to optimize for quality of leads here and not just volume. Now, the problem that I see like 80% of advertisers make is when they're running their campaigns, they're just optimizing for like becoming a lead. So what I mean by that is they set up their campaigns and they're like, Facebook, I want to optimize for people who are leads. And that lead is someone who just literally filled out their like name and email here on this first part, and then they go to watch the VSL. Now, what we can do is we can start to like a very beginning step is start to optimize for deeper in the funnel. So instead of optimizing for leads, we can optimize for people who have filled out the application. We can optimize for people who have actually booked a call. And this is going to help us start to train Facebook to get us people who are going deeper and deeper in the funnel. Now, if you're just starting a campaign and it's like day one, oftentimes like you don't have enough data for these things, because you do need like a certain volume of people who have actually done these types of actions, maybe 20 or 30 people before you can try to start optimizing for these. So if it's your first day running this campaign, yeah, maybe you just have to optimize for leads, but we want to get deeper in the funnel as quickly as possible. Now, again, going back to the topic of training Facebook to send us better leads, oftentimes like even people who fill out the application might not be good leads, or people who are actually even booking a call might not be the people that we want. And like, to be totally honest, this was a mistake that I was making at one point, because we were running this exact type of funnel and we were optimizing for calls and we were getting a ton of calls booked. But what the problem I ran into is like, I was looking at the numbers and it was like, after we considered like no-shows and cancellations, only like half of the people were actually even getting on the phone and being able to talk to sales reps. And knowing what I know about the Facebook algorithm, I'm like, man, the problem is we're training like half this pixel on sending us people that we automatically are disqualifying and saying we don't want. And so what we did was we set up a conditional logic in our form. This is why I really like using Typeform for this. Is because we set up a conditional logic where like if somebody answers a certain series of questions in a way that we know they're not going to be a qualified lead, they don't even get to the calendar. And so this takes them to a disqualified page where we actually just pitch them on like a low ticket offer. and they just say like, hey, you don't qualify for this because of X, Y, and Z. We actually think you would be a much better fit for this offer. They get disqualified. And the only people who make it to the call stage are people who are qualified through our application. And so now what we're doing is we've got the pixel on this thank you page. We're removing any unqualified people at the application stage, and we're only sending people to the thank you page who are actually hitting the pixel that are qualified leads through our application stage. And so this is the first step that we can do where we can start to filter people out and start to only train Facebook on the actual people that are booking calls that we want to have on the calendar. Now, the next step to this, all of the people who are booking calls are going into our CRM. And we also send them to Slack so that we have a way to like reach out to them quickly. Let the sales reps know that somebody came in, and we have a way to reach out to them quickly. Now, depending on what your tech stack is, there might be a different technical way for you to implement this. But again, we're trying to figure out how we can only train Facebook to send us exactly what we want, because that's going back to that same principle of like, Facebook is going to be really good at sending you exactly what you're asking for. So now what we're doing is we're optimizing for call. We're disqualifying anybody here at the application stage that's telling us anything that might make them not a good fit. We're doing that. And then the other thing we're doing is in our CRM, in our Slack, our sales reps can actually manually say like whether this call is good, whether they've canceled, whether they've no-showed, or whether they were actually like a good call on the phone. And so when we get like a good call on the phone, that's when we have an automation set up where we are taking that data of like, who was this good call? So what was like their name, their email, when did they fill out the application, and what was that Facebook click ID? That's a really important one in terms of what ad did they click on that got them to that application. We take all of that and we send that back to Facebook on a different event. So like we'll use a standard event like contact. And so when we actually have a good call, we send that data back to Facebook. Now, if we look at this kind of like from a funnel perspective of, okay, what does the funnel look like to Facebook? Meaning like the different events that are happening that we're sending back to Facebook, we have all these options. Like people become leads, then they file an application, then they actually book a call, and then we actually have like a good call on the calendar. And what we can do is we can optimize for this event right here. So again, what we're trying to do is set up an environment where technically what we're doing is we're sending Facebook the data for who are the absolute best people that we are getting on the phone with the sales reps. And then we're optimizing the campaigns, and we're telling Facebook, only send me these people right here that are actually good calls that we want to have more of. And that's filtering out all of these other people that we're getting on the phone or that are going through our funnel that are just not the qualified people that we want. And so Facebook has the ability to figure out who are these people, what are their common characteristics, and how can we go get more people like this? So this is super effective. From a technical perspective, it is like you need to have some kind of tech, person on your team that can help set this up. But like the tools are super simple. So we use Convertry for all of our landing pages for all our funnels. This is like one of the best tips I can give most people running ads is like anything like a ClickFunnels or so many of these landing page builders are just so slow. And so we use Convertry for our whole funnel. That is just like, this helps us a bunch just have fast loading landing pages. We use Typeform for all of our applications because again, this gives us that conditional logic and it gives us the ability to like really easily set up mobile friendly applications and then also store things like the Facebook click ID and the stuff that's coming through the form. And then we can store that in the CRM so that we can pull it later and go send that back to Facebook for these pixel events. So that's a really big one. And then once we have all that information, we're using something like a Zapier or a Make. It's really going to depend on just like, what is your tech stack? So depending on your CRM, like you may or may not need all of these things. Like I think if you have Go High Level, you could probably do the whole thing in Go High Level. I don't use Go High Level. So this is our tech stack right here. Again, your tech stack is going to be dependent on like what is the CRM and everything that you're using. But the goal here is to figure out how can we store the data that we need to about the leads that are coming in and then send back to Facebook only what we need so that we're able to train Facebook on those best people. I was actually doing some consulting recently with a big online coaching company. So they're doing multiple six figures per month. And they reached out to me because they were dealing with the problems that a lot of people have to deal with, right? It's like leads were going down, quality was going down, like everything was just going down. And so we jumped through our consulting and we went through this and a few other things. And just within a couple of tweaks, like within a couple of months, they were able to turn things around. And like now their biggest issue is they just have too much volume and they're trying to figure out how to deal with that. And so like implementing this and what I'm about to share with you around the messaging can make a really big difference on your campaigns, and it doesn't take a really long time to do. So once you have this set up, let's talk about how this actually affects your targeting and how you're setting up your campaign. So when you start training your Facebook pixel like this, you need way less targeting in the actual ads manager to be able to find the right people. Many years ago, there absolutely was this strategy where we would be running tons of different ad sets and we were testing all different kinds of audiences. So we, if we were running a business offer, we were trying to see if like Tony Robbins converted better than Brendan Burchard and like all these different targeting tricks. We pretty much do almost none of that these days. So especially with like high ticket coaching offers and stuff, I haven't found that like straight up broad targeting works. So like a lot of e-commerce channels and stuff I see around here talk about like they just run broad, they put no targeting. For us, normally like we have a defined audience that we're trying to go after, whether that's like some type of business or investing or something like that. So we are using some kind of targeting to help guide the Facebook pixel, but we're thinking way more about how we can train Facebook on the kinds of people we want it to go find. And then we're giving it really big audiences. I'm talking audiences that are between like 3 to 10 million people, so that we're like giving it some general direction and what to go optimize for. But then we're letting Facebook use this pixel training to actually go out and find more people. Now we might test like a large group of interests. So we'll test like a bunch of different interests that are kind of stacked on top of each other that are like, again, generally pushing Facebook in the right direction. We'll test lookalike audiences. And then we might test like an interest group that's working plus a lookalike audience that's on top of that. So it's like a layer, but that's really like the max of the audience testing we're doing. And we're thinking way more about this, about like, how do we make sure we have really clean data going back to the pixel? And then we're telling Facebook when we set up our campaign objective, like, hey, this is the actual event that we want you to do. So in like this case, we'd be saying like, we want you to go find more of these good calls, these quality prospects that we're already talking to on the phone. Just optimize for that. And then what Facebook's going to do, it's going to use all its millions of points of data that it has on everybody that's on the platform to just go find more people who match the people who are hitting that final event in your funnel. Now, this is an incredible foundation. And if you'll do this, you'll do more than most businesses are doing with their advertising. I do find that like this is probably the most technical part of media buying these days, is like making sure you have really clean data going to your pixel. If you can stack on top of that your creative strategy, like this is where you'll really win. Because the mistake that I see so many people make when I go look in their accounts is their messaging is just way too broad and way too vague. What I mean by that is a lot of people are afraid to disqualify people by being too specific because they want their campaigns to be broad and attract lots of people. And so they speak very generally. They speak to really big audiences. And when I look at our best campaigns, what I'll see is like, we will find a winning copy. So like some kind of, story hook format that's working really well. And then we will have that in the account in a ton of different variations. And usually the variation is on the very specific person that we're talking to and the very specific problem that we're experiencing. So what that often looks like is when we look at our ad copy and we break it out and it's like, okay, here's our hook. That's like the first sentence or two that's calling out to someone. And then we have like our kind of like problem agitation. And then we might like intro who our expert is. We might have like a little discovery story. And then we have like a, like problems and then benefits and then CTA, so I can't spell benefits, but you get what I'm going for. If I look at like this structure of our ad, most of our ad will be the exact same, and we'll just change this top part so that we're speaking to a very specific person and we're speaking about a very specific problem that they have. So let me give you an example on this. Let's say that I have a business that has let's say I run a high ticket coaching offer and I work with e-commerce store owners. And specifically I work with like e-commerce store owners that are stuck around like 10K a month and we're trying to grow them past 50K. In that segment of business owners, there might be a few different people who are like coming from different backgrounds and people who are experiencing different problems. And we'll know this stuff because we talk to these people every day, right? So it's like we're talking to these people on the phone and we might be able to say we found like 3 different segments of e-commerce store owners. Maybe there's one who's like people who are kind of doing this like part-time on the side and it's still not their full-time thing. Maybe we find people who it's like they're doing this as a full-time thing, but they still are having trouble with this. And I don't know, I'm making up another one, but like maybe we find another one who they're just like not super technical. So one of the biggest issues is like they're super product focused, but they really run into issues with tech stuff. I don't know. I'm making this up. But my point is like, usually through our data and like talking to people and knowing our customers, we can kind of start to, we know that this is our ideal person, but we kind of start to break them out into little buckets. Now we might know between those buckets, they're going to have very different problems that might bring them into our program that we still would be able to offer them like a really good solution to help them do this. Now, breaking that out into these buckets, each one of those might be experiencing different problems along the way based on where they're at in this kind of stage of growth. And so what we would do is we'd be running very similar ads, but this very top part up here is what's customized to exactly kind of who that bucket of person is and the very specific problems that they're dealing with. And then once we get down into here into like the story, discovery, the problems, the benefits, it's, a little catered to like who they are and a little bit like our story is a little more reflected into speaking to the history of this person that they would relate to. And then like usually the problem and benefits and the CTA are pretty much the same. When we do this, what happens is this top part of our ad and our ad copy becomes like a dog whistle. So rather than using a megaphone to just kind of scream to everybody and try to have like one or two ads that are just going to attract all the people, we have a bunch of different ads that are using very, very specific copy that is like a dog whistle that only the people who we're trying to speak to or can really like would pay attention and click on this ad. And in our campaigns, we have a bunch of different ad sets that are speaking to these different kind of like sub segments of our ideal avatar. And each one is addressing a very different problem. The other thing that I would add, and this is something that it took me a long time to learn when it came to selling high ticket offers, is also looking at like, what are the optics of your campaign and how do your ads look subconsciously to the people that you're trying to attract? Because when people are buying coaching or they're buying high ticket offers, so much of what they're buying is like the person that they're buying it from. It's just true, right? Like you've probably heard this before, but it's like people don't buy coaching, they're buying coaches. Like people want to buy from you for a particular reason over the reason why they would want to buy from somebody else. And you are going to attract a lot of what you put out there. And so if you're trying to get away with like not having any of you in your campaigns, or you're just putting out the wrong message in terms of like, let's say you're trying to attract super high quality luxury people, like premium people, and your ads just kind of look trashy and they're super basic and it's you standing against a blank wall somewhere, that's not going to attract the type of people that you want. And so also thinking about like, what are the images that you're using? What are the videos that you're using? What's in the background of your video when you're running ads? Like all of this stuff can make a really big difference when you're running these campaigns. And so if you'll think about these things while you're coming up with your creative strategy, now what you're doing is you're using your ads as like a dog whistle to speak to only the right people that you want to go out to. And you're testing like very specific, thinking through like who are very specific people that have very specific problems right now. And you're using your ad to call out to those people. And then you're using the technical part that we've laid out so that you're actually training the pixel to only send you more of those people. This is where we see that we're really able to start scaling up campaigns and start getting a lot of the people that we're looking for. So now that we've discussed kind of like the technical side of this and the actual like creative strategy and how you can use your messaging for all this, now let's talk about like how I would actually roll this out inside of your account. So the good news is you don't need to roll all of this out at once. You can do this step by step and you can start to see results pretty quickly. So the very first thing I would do is I would roll out this like conditional logic on your application. So if you are just using any kind of like form builder, whether that's Typeform or Jotform or whatever, I would go through and figure out what is like historically the questions that people answer that just makes them not a good lead. And I would set up this kind of conditional logic so that if someone is disqualified, they get sent to a disqualified page and there's no pixel on that page at all. So that Facebook is not learning that these are good leads. And only the qualified people actually get shown the calendar to book a call. On this disqualified page, you can actually just put a low ticket offer so you can kind of monetize that traffic a bit. And then what I would actually do is I would put a new event in your Facebook pixel. So whatever standard event you've been using for calls booked, maybe it's like contact or schedule or whatever, I would use a new one and I would start training that event just on this like qualified calls. Because as you start collecting data there, whether it takes you, a couple of days or a week or a couple of weeks, once you have like 20 or 30 good calls booked using that new event, you can start testing, optimizing your campaigns for that event. And again, it can just be like a little test. You don't need to go all the way into it. Just start rolling out some new ad sets. And instead of choosing your old event, which was like all your kind of just everybody who was coming through your funnel, now you're optimizing for only those good people and not the disqualified people. The second thing I would do is I'd set up that automation with your CRM. So again, it's hard to tell you exactly how to set this up because I don't know your tech stack. Like your tech stack is going to vary depending on if you're using Hyros, you're not using Hyros, you're using Go High Level, like whatever your CRM and your tracking tools are. But what we want to do is figure out a way so that we can have another event. So let's say like, a different standard event on the Facebook pixel, like contact or schedule or something, right? Where it's like, we're only sending leads where the sales team is actually saying like, hey, this is a good quality person. This is the ideal person that we want to be talking to nonstop. Because again, you can start training the pixel on that. And whether it takes you a couple of days or a couple of weeks, depending on your call volume, what you can do is you can start to have this event building data inside the ads manager, inside your events manager on your pixel. So that again, what you can do is in the future, once you have 20 or 30 calls booked, you can start testing for Facebook to optimize for only those really good people. The third thing I would be doing is I would be testing new messaging every single week. So our cadence is pretty much like at the beginning of every week, we're going into our accounts and we're launching new ads. That includes new actual like copy on the text, and that includes new creative. So like new images, new videos. Those images oftentimes have some kind of copy on them. So we're testing something there. Videos, those are obviously spoken words, like that's a script. So we're testing stuff there. But every week we're launching new ads. And what we're looking for is what's actually bringing us quality leads. So now that we're sending that data back to the pixel, or if we have like some kind of third-party tracking system like Hyros, or like you should definitely have something like that set up. But what we can do is we can start to track what campaigns are sending us the best quality leads. And now we're getting away from just asking Facebook, again, hey, just send us more leads and we're going to look at what campaigns are sending us leads, to we're actually looking at like what is sending us the best quality of leads, what messaging is sending us the best quality leads, what is giving us the best cost per actual quality lead. And we can start to make decisions around what's getting us the best quality of leads. Which brings me to my next point, which is actually tracking your metrics based on what is sending you quality leads. So I can't tell you how many businesses that I've talked to over the years where it's like they had a media buyer who was like logging into the ads manager and reporting on what the Facebook pixel was saying was sending them leads. And people get into this case where they're like getting super inaccurate data that's just not really valuable. Like if I'm just looking at how well the Facebook pixel is reporting that I'm getting leads and I'm optimizing for the lowest quality leads, it's not shocking that over time, you're just going to get a bunch of garbage. What we want to be doing is actually looking at over time, what is sending us the best quality clients? Where are we getting the best ROI on all our ads? And then especially when we're looking at like call booking campaigns, what campaigns are sending us the most quality leads? And so that way on a daily basis, we're actually looking at like, these are actually the actual ads and the actual messaging that is sending us the best quality leads. And so then we're not focused on just getting leads, like actual names and emails, but we're focused on like who is actually getting on the phone with our sales team and is the best, most qualified person. And where are those people coming from? If you do this, it will only take a few weeks to start to really like train your pixel and train your system on actually sending you better quality people. Cool thing is once you have the technical part set up with the pixel, like there's a little, you have to make sure that that stays managed correctly, but you just manage the technical side to make sure that that's all set up. And then it's really just focusing on like messaging and rolling out new messaging, kind of like I showed you here earlier in the video. And then also making sure that you're making decisions based on that good data. But that's it. And if you will implement this, like I would be shocked if you were not getting way better quality leads in just a few weeks. So that's the whole system. What we talked about is like technically, how can you actually get Facebook to send you better leads? And the biggest thing to think about is Facebook is going to give you exactly what you ask for. The problem is most people don't realize that they're just optimizing for general leads and they're sending Facebook all of these bad leads to the pixel and saying, go get me more of these. And so what we want to do is start to filter a lot of that data out. So what we're telling Facebook is these are the absolute best leads that we're getting. Only go get us more people like this, because it comes down to that principle of like garbage in, garbage out. If you're sending a bunch of garbage data to your pixel, you cannot scale garbage data on a just bad pixel. You need good, clean data on a good pixel, and then you can go tell Facebook to get you more of those people. And you can use Facebook's amazing algorithm that knows everything about all the people on the internet, basically, to go get more people like that. Once you have this set up, we talked about how now this makes your targeting really more focused on your, like how you're actually just using broad audiences inside of Facebook. And then you're thinking about, okay, how am I training the pixel to go get me more people? So you're just kind of giving Facebook a little bit of a directional push in the right way, but you're really letting the Facebook algorithm optimized for. These are the exact people I want. Go find me more people like this in this big audience that I'm giving it. From the messaging side, we're really trying to dial in our messaging. So we're using like a dog whistle where we're speaking to very specific people with very specific problems. Or we're getting rid of all this like vague messaging. And then we're also thinking about like, what are the visuals that we're running in our campaigns? What's in our videos? What's in our images? So that we're like also thinking about subconsciously, like what are people thinking and who are we attracting with the type of imagery that we're using in our campaigns? And then to actually roll this out, we're just training the Facebook pixel on these new people that we want by setting up like new events on the pixel. And then as we're gathering data, as we get like 20, 30 data points on like what's a better quality person or a really good call coming from the sales team, how can we just test new ad sets that are optimized for that event instead of the previous event that we had before? And then from there, it's like looking at your data and looking at your dashboards and actually looking at like, don't just look at leads and don't just look at what the Facebook pixel is telling you, but use like real third-party tracking or some kind of system to figure out what are the ad sets and what are the ads that are actually sending you really good quality people and how well is that converting. And then we get away from thinking about like, how do we just get the cheapest leads to we start thinking about how do we actually get the best people coming through this funnel and how do we train Facebook to give us those people. So that's it. Hopefully you found this really helpful. If you want some of my help with this, I have some links down in the description below. Like if you want me to actually look at your ads, if you want me to help you actually set some of this stuff up, I've got information about all of that in the description below. If you do like this video, please like, subscribe, because that just tells me like what kind of videos you guys want to see and it helps me make more videos like this. So if you have questions, drop them in the comments. If you want to see more videos similar to this, please just let me know down in the comments. Otherwise, I got some other videos probably popping up, on this side of my face somewhere over here about similar topics like this because I talk about this kind of stuff on this channel all the time. Other than that, thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day out there and I hope to catch you in another video soon.